Hey everyone, welcome back to Comic Strip Teased. I'm Matt.
I'm Dave.
And we're talking the art of comics.
So today we're going to be talking about the best comics from February of 2019.
February wasn't the strongest month for me, but there's still some good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, from an individual issue standpoint, there weren't a lot of huge standouts. I mean, there's some really good series going on right now.
Yeah.
But there weren't a lot of, oh my God, this one issue was
big
amazing.
Moments, right.
Yeah. There were a couple,
yeah.
But so anyway, we're going to talk about our first of our top three from the month.
We're going to start with a book from Vertigo Comics called High Level.
Done by Rob Sheridan and Barnaby Bagenda. It was a very interesting read.
Yeah, I mean the art in it is fantastic. It's kind of a painted style.
Very unique. I thought it was cool. It stood out.
Yeah, and it takes place in the future. It's this sort of whole different culture, whole different landscape.
Yeah, it's basically like a take on the Bible, whether it's true or not, and if there's actually like a heaven or something along those lines. So this kind of has a tangible, quote-unquote, heaven that they call the high level. Yeah. Where some people believe that it actually exists and is like a paradise, and other people think it's BS.
Right. So they're kind of playing at ideas of how do you get there? Is it a class thing? Is it for real? Is it not? Is it a cult? Is it not? And you've got people sort of down on the street level, which is where our characters are at the beginning of the story. And
right. Yeah. 13, I believe she's referred to as. Yeah, she's kind of a badass. You know, does things for hire. You know, like takes care of odd jobs.
Yeah, and there's some enforcers. They're kind of like cops who are in busting balls and. You realize that there's kind of a manhunt going on for somebody, and then she gets mixed up in that at the end. So I thought it set up the series really well. Kind of makes you want to know more about it.
So yeah, I thought it was interesting. I definitely am curious to see what the second issue is going to be like.
All right, for our second book, we're looking at a Marvel book, which isn't always on either of our lists. But Dave, what did you think?
Every once in a while, they have a gem, and they made our top three this month. So
which is impressive.
It is. Invaders #2, I thought was really good. Both 1 and 2 were great, but 2 it's got the original Invaders. It's got Namor, who's up to some shenanigans. Cap goes down to Atlantis to confront him on it. It's very contentious. John Hammond, the original Human Torch, is in this story as well, and it's kind of like a mystery because you don't know everything that's going on. So they have a couple different storylines, but the best part about it was they're doing these new flashbacks to the 40s. During the original Invaders time, and Butch Geist does the art on those. Chip Zdarsky writes the comic, but Butch Geist's flashbacks are so awesome.
And Butch Geist is awesome. I've loved his stuff for years. We each have a page or so from them. So,
like I said, I think it's their best book right now so far. I mean, it's only a couple issues in, but it's definitely worth reading. Yeah.
All right, so for our third book, we're bringing one back from last month, which we kind of didn't want to do, but for that, we're bringing in Criminal #2.
Criminal #2 was even better than Criminal #1. It goes in a completely different direction than #1.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the first issue. It doesn't. Right? It's like a whole different story, which is great. And
me too. It was so good. And the main character in this comic is an old
has-been
comic book creator who got into some shit, and I don't know, I just thought it was so good. Just as a standalone issue, you could just pick up this one and read it.
Right.
It's awesome.
So what it is we've got this, kind of like we said, an old has-been comic creator who's looks like he's in his kind of like retirement age, and he's being invited to a comic convention, and you kind of get into this sort of schwarmy bad crap of creators who got screwed out of original art pages, and him trying to get them back and not having enough money and trying to, feeling like he got ripped off. And they have all of these great real life people in it. And even though this is a fictionalized story, they're kind of using real events. Different creators who maybe died in a car crash or got in a fist fight in the editor's room.
Like Julius Schwartz, that was great. Like punch him in the face. I mean, if you are a fan of just a lot of different comic creators throughout the years, this book is awesome.
And again, you've got Sean Phillips on art, which is always as good as it gets. And Brubaker, top form as a writer. It just continues to be great.
Yeah, so we'll see if #3 makes it next month. But so far, I don't see anything beating it.
Right.
Okay, so that was our top 3 single issues for February. So now we're going to do our back issue bin pick. And there's one that Matt really liked at first that I love. then kind of lost his way a little bit with it, and then
Yeah.
came back to it.
Yeah. So the title is Lazarus, which is by Greg Rucka and Michael Lark. Like Dave said, I started, I got the first 5 or 6 issues, and I thought it was good, but it kind of came out the same time as East to West, and I felt like both were telling similar political type stories of different houses. And
Sure.
for whatever reason, I just took a pause on it and didn't continue. But then at one of the comic conventions last year, I found a whole run of them for $1 each, so I got caught up, and they'd been sitting in my
Cheap ass.
Yeah. So they've been sitting in my to read pile. I ended up reading like 20 issues in a row. I binge read them over the course of a week, and it just completely kicked my ass. I loved it. So I just thought it got kind of lost in the weeds around issue 10 through the teens, and
Sure.
and I didn't continue. But then when I went back and reread them and binge read them all at once, where you're not waiting 30 days in between each one,
Right.
And because it's a complicated story. And it kind of felt like by reading them all at once, I was able to just kind of keep pace, and I knew everything that was going on, all the politics, and I wasn't missing anything. And then I was super excited that just this month in previews, they solicited the new Lazarus, because it kind of stopped, and now it's starting back up again. So it's like perfect timing to have read this.
Yeah, and like Matt said, there's actually a few trade paperbacks available. So there are some comics that read better in trade paperback form rather than monthly.
Right.
And like you said, with the new series coming out, I'm really excited about it. Not only that, but Amazon's making an original show.
Yeah, well, you and I were, when I got done reading it, and we both were like, God, why doesn't like HBO or AMC or somebody, because this is basically Game of Thrones in a just sci-fi environment. Yeah, I can't wait. I hope that is super successful for them, that helps fuel the comics to keep going for a long time.
Exactly.
The book is just terrific. Okay, so we're continuing on the long box back issue
Whatever
items.
you want to call it.
What was a good one? Tell us about the one you read this month.
Lock and Key. I went back and revisited the first volume. It's done by Joe Hill, who is Stephen King's son. But he's done a few comics, and all the comics that he's done have been written really well. He gets the pacing of comic books, I think, where some novelists have a hard time with that. But
Like his dad.
yeah. Gabriel Rodriguez's art on it is so cool too, but it's this old creepy house with this weird supernatural stuff going inside of it. The main character of this book has a family, lives in California. He actually grew up in that house. It's an ancestral house that's been in their family forever. So he moves them back there.
Yeah.
And his kids start seeing all the weird shit
Right,
that
everything's
happens in
kinda-
there. It's really good. There are 6 volumes, I believe, in the series. I highly recommend trying it.
Yeah.
I have never had somebody read the first volume in 10 years and not get the second one. So it's just something that's gone over really well.
Yeah.
It's got a really cool feel to it, and it's just this creepy enough vibe
Right.
that it's not like overly gory or anything, but just done really well.
Right. I have teenage boys, and they're not always like the biggest comic fans, because I think they're so into that video game culture, and
Yeah.
and the TV thing. But every once in a while, I can get them to read something, and I showed them the first volume of Lock and Key.
Yeah.
And my 2 oldest immediately read them and were like, "This is awesome! Get more!" So I ended up getting all the volumes for them, and it was just, for me, that's a win.
Yeah, that's impressive, especially if they're not normal comic book readers. Yeah, I think it's a book, like I said, that can appeal to a lot of people, male, female,
Right.
younger, older. It's just done really well. So that was my pick for the month. All right, so that wraps up our Best of February 2019. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you haven't watched our other videos, you should go back and watch those.
Definitely subscribe so you can see more episodes. And if you have any other opinions of your favorite books from this month, put them in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. If you like the content of this video, please drop a thumbs up below to support the channel. And make sure to click subscribe to see future content.